We return to our Kalos quest with an episode I don't see changing much. Garchomp's Mega Bond will go the same as in canon, and we can just skip over defending the homeland as well, in which our heroes return to the home of Serena's Sliggoo. A lot will be the same as in canon, but with a twist. Sliggoo will not be nearly as strong, and therefore ends up losing against Florges. Team Rocket will still show up and try to convince Florges to work alongside them, but Florges will just send them blasting off, as it has no need to work with them this time around. The other aspects of the story, such as the true reason why Florges took over the wetlands, will still play out similarly, just without Team Rocket's involvement. However, even though the wetlands are able to come together as one big happy family, Sliggoo will not stay behind. Serena will make the offer to Sliggoo since there's no need for it to continue to get stronger, but Sliggoo will still choose to stick around since it still has not become strong. Sliggoo doesn't need to beat Florges for the sake of the wetlands, but Serena still made a promise to help it become stronger in her own way. The two agree to continue traveling together, with Sliggoo making a promise to face Florges again upon achieving its goal. So Sliggoo is not released, and the group can continue on to Lavere City. We can also skip over the episode So You're Having a Bad Day, as I don't see it changing much. Scary Hospitality will also go the same. Technically, the storm that happens outside could trigger Sliggoo to evolve at some point, but I don't think it's strong enough just yet. It's now that the group reaches Lavere City. Both Ash and Serena are excited to meet Valerie, the Lavere City gym leader, but like in canon, they end up running into Sawyer. Clement recognizes him as the previous gym challenger to the Lumiose gym, and they get to know Sawyer a little bit. The gap between Ash and Sawyer's skill is very much apparent, and this acts as the same driving force it is in canon, but with the additional fact of Ash having both Mega Evolution and a super strong Charizard, as Bonnie puts it. Like in canon, Ash and Sawyer do a double battle. It's Frogadier and Hawlucha against Trico and Bagon. And Ash is able to win before the fashion show from canon begins. The episode then continues like in canon, resulting in Sawyer being unable to defeat Valerie and her fairy-type Pokemon. Ash and Sawyer agree to train together not long afterwards, though, and so the two begin running multiple practice battles, before the day comes for Ash to challenge the gym. As the two practice, Sawyer gets to know members of Ash's team. Most notably, he's surprised to find Ash's Mega Evolving Pokemon to not be his Charizard, but a Mawile. Sawyer makes note of it being a species that originated in Hoenn, but only recently was it discovered to be a fairy type. Ash talks about how he and Mawile only became partners before fighting Karina in Shalor City. The two had been working together, but it was only recently that Mega Evolution became achievable. Unfortunately, there was a setback in the sense that when Mawile would Mega Evolve, it would gain sets of jaws that basically had a will of their own. If Mawile would get angry, then these emotions would merely send her jaws into a frenzy of their own. This had happened during his battle with Clement, and he was unable to help Mawile before it was ultimately defeated. Sawyer finds this information intriguing, and so begins writing it down in his notebook. As the two continue practicing together, Valerie watches on, taking interest in Ash's Mawile. It's then that the day comes for Ash to battle against Valerie. Sawyer decides to bring out Trico, that way the two of them can watch the battle together, and hopefully learn from Ash and his team. When Ash enters the battlefield, he is soon told that, because of Ash's clear strength, Valerie has decided to change things up a bit. She will be battling Ash in a 4-on-4. However, the gym leader makes a stipulation. She can tell that Ash's Pikachu and Charizard are quite powerful, and that Ash can rely on them in most cases. So Valerie tells Ash that since the beauty of those two Pokemon is easily on display, she wants to see the beauty of his other Pokemon. In other words, Ash is banned from using Pikachu and Charizard in this battle. The stipulation surprises our heroes in the stands. Even though Ash and Charizard have been dealing with their own troubles, Charizard was absolutely one of Ash's strongest Pokemon alongside Pikachu. So if Ash couldn't use either, and Valerie was going to be even tougher against Ash than she was against Sawyer, then would Ash even be able to pull off the win? The group is uncertain, but still cheer for Ash with as much energy as they usually do. They just have to hope that Ash will be able to pull this one off. The battle starts with Frogadier up against Klefki. Frogadier starts off strong and fast, just like always. However, when Frogadier goes for acrobatics, Klefki defends with Reflect. Ash tries for Hydro Pump next, only for Klefki to counter this with Light Screen. Frogadier continues attacking quickly, but nothing it does is able to land much damage against Klefki. Ash tries to get the upper hand by having Frogadier bound off the walls with acrobatics in order to gain even more speed. But that's when Valerie pulls out her trump card, Trick Room. As soon as the Trick Room walls go up, Frogadier's speed depletes almost instantly. As if that weren't enough, suddenly Klefki is moving around far faster than it was originally shown capable of. The sentient pair of keys fly circles around Frogadier, before being able to land some powerful hits with foul play, using Frogadier's own strength against himself. Frogadier is able to get the edge up on using Smackdown to knock Klefki out of the air, but by the time Frogadier starts to push back against Klefki, enough damage has been done to Frogadier that Klefki is still ultimately able to come out the winner. Knowing that speed won't be able to save him this time, Ash brings out Quilladin, hoping the Grass-type's defenses can help him in this fight. Unfortunately, the moment the Rotund Nut hits the battlefield, Valerie chooses to swap out for her Sylveon. The sight of the adorable evolution, of course, charms the Spiny Armor Pokemon, as if it had the cute charm ability. With Quilladin fully infatuated off looks alone, Valerie is able to attack with a powerful hidden power, which sends Quilladin tumbling backwards. When it stops rolling, Ash notices slight burn marks. A fire-type attack? Luckily, it wasn't able to inflict a proper burn status. Still, the damage output was more than he expected. He and Quilladin were going to need to be careful. Once he's sure Quilladin can still fight, he pulls out a new move he'd perfected while training with Sawyer. By having Quilladin spin rapidly, it's able to strike with a powerful Gyro Ball against Sylveon. Sylveon attempts to attack with yet another hidden power, but Quilladin is able to counter by using Gyro Ball, before Ash has Quilladin use Vine Whip to latch onto Sylveon, before rapidly spinning it around as well. Valerie is surprised by this combination of attacks, but that won't stop her and Sylveon. With a command of Psyshock, Sylveon fires purple beams of energy, striking Quilladin from above hard enough to stop the spinning. Sylveon lands on the ground, unleashing a powerful hyper voice at the command of her trainer. Quilladin stands his ground, but only up until Sylveon switches to Psyshock, which Quilladin is unable to guard itself from. Sylveon keeps up the pressure, firing off hidden power to keep Quilladin from getting close. Quilladin has trouble getting past this, until Ash makes the call to evade with a well-timed Gyro Ball, before countering with a powerful Pin Missile. Valerie is about to use Psyshock, when Ash makes the quick command of Vine Whip, wrapping around Sylveon's body before pulling it in close. This makes Valerie back off, not wanting Sylveon caught in the blast of the attack. Instead, she switches to Hyper Voice. The piercing cry ripples throughout the stadium, forcing all who hear it to cover their ears. Quilladin tries desperately to hang in there, but being at ground zero of the attack makes it most difficult to handle. That is, until a single voice manages to break through Sylveon's own, erupting with the command of Needle Arm. With all Quilladin's might, he reels back his arm. It glows with a spiky green light, which forms the shape of a cactus, which Quilladin then uses to strike Sylveon across the jaw. Quilladin follows this up with yet another, before finally releasing Sylveon from Vine Whip. Ash calls for Gyro Ball, to which Valerie tries to counter with Shadow Ball. The spectral attack strikes, only for Quilladin to break through, before finally managing to bring down the Fairy Evolution. Ash has managed to pull out a win, but the group wonders if he'll be able to keep up the pace. After all, Valerie still has the advantage thanks to Trick Room. Even if it faded, who was to say she wasn't going to just set it back up with Klefki? Valerie sends out her Azumarill next, a curious decision, as Sawyer points out that this gives her a type disadvantage. Ash commands an attack from Quilladin, trying to get ahead, only for Azumarill to strike first with Aqua Jet. Azumarill follows up with an onslaught of powerful blows via Play Rough, which racks up damage against Quilladin. Ash and Quilladin try to counter, and even manage to make some distance with a well-timed pin missile. But the difference in power is just too huge. Ultimately, Ash and Quilladin make the tough decision to switch out. With Quilladin being overpowered and having issue taking hits from Azumarill, Ash chooses to bring in Hawlucha next. This seems to level the playing field though, as the two are able to clash on much more even footing. The Trick Room makes things difficult for Hawlucha, as he doesn't move as he'd like to, but that doesn't stop him from clashing blow for blow with the Aqua Rabbit. Azumarill attempts to strike with yet another Aqua Jet, but Hawlucha just barely manages to dodge with acrobatics before counterattacking with a high jump kick. This delivers a heavy blow, but allows Azumarill to latch on to Hawlucha before striking back with Waterfall. The Aqua Rabbit and Luchador Hawk go back and forth, trading blow after blow of heavy hits against each other. Even despite the clear disadvantage, Hawlucha puts up a great fight, but he's starting to run out of steam. Ash tries to call Hawlucha back, but the Hawk refuses. Prideful, just like Charizard. Well, he can't refuse his Pokemon, so Hawlucha gets a second wind. When Azumarill tries to attack with Play Rough, Hawlucha catches it under the chin and takes it to the ground with a high jump kick. Just as Valerie calls for Azumarill to counterstrike, the Trick Room fades. Now Azumarill's movements are slow, making it unable to move in time for a finishing high-flying press. Ash now has the lead, but Valerie still has tricks up her very long sleeves. She brings out Klefki, which immediately sets up 2 layers of screens once again. As Hawlucha goes in for high jump kick, the sentient keys evade, causing the Luchador to crash down in immense pain. Klefki then follows up with Trick Room, immediately slowing Hawlucha once again. Hawlucha tried to power through though, breaking out a brand new move in X-Scissor. However, Klefki avoids yet again, and this time counter-strikes with a powerful foul play. Hawlucha crashes against the Trick Room surrounding the battlefield and slumps down. Ash calls out to his Fighting Hawk, and thankfully, Hawlucha gets back up. Hawlucha strikes a pose, showing this battle is far from over. Klefki, however, laughs at the Hawk's plight. Klefki's laughter isn't just for show, as it continues to outmaneuver Hawlucha every time and every step of the way. Regardless of Hawlucha's flopping press, high jump kick, acrobatics, or X-Scissor being used, Klefki's evasive maneuvers and defensive measures prove to be superior. The Hawk is constantly slammed against Trick Room, but he keeps getting back up. That's when Ash has an idea. He calls for acrobatics yet again. However, this time, he has Hawlucha spring from wall to wall of the Trick Room. Hawlucha may be slower, but the movements still catch Valerie off guard. At first, Ash merely uses these movements to strike with a few hits of X-Scissor against Klefki. However, it keeps the gym leader on her toes, so as to not give her an easy way to counter-strike. Hawlucha keeps bounding around the battlefield, until finally Ash's real strategy is revealed, as he commands Hawlucha to leap up high and crash through Trick Room. Hawlucha's Acrobatic X Scissor combo strikes the Psychic-type move, and against all odds, he shatters the Trick Room. Hawlucha's flight doesn't stop there, though, as he soars higher, until he can almost touch the roof of the gym. As he begins to descend back down, Ash calls for Flying Press, a move which occurs far before Klefki can counter. When the dust settles, a flexing Hawlucha stands the victor. Everyone basks in the glory of Hawlucha. Or at least, that's how it feels for the fighting type anyway. Needless to say, the strategy was quite impressive. But that doesn't mean Valerie is out of this just yet. No. Instead, she's just warming up. Out from her final Pokeball comes her true ace. Back turned, jaws agape, eyes fierce. Her ace is none other than her own Mawile. Ash and Hawlucha begin their assault, heading in for a deliberate high jump kick. However, just as Hawlucha is about to strike, Mawile's jaws clamp down on Hawlucha's leg. Energy explodes out from the clashing attacks, but when the dust settles, Hawlucha is still in a bind. Valerie apologizes to Hawlucha, explaining how he's not the one who will satiate the hunger of Mawile's fangs. With that, her Mawile uses Swords Dance, spinning in an almost pirouette before using Fire Fang to end Hawlucha once and for all. Ash is dumbfounded. Hawlucha was on a winning streak, but now he was out. Just like that. What did Valerie mean by Hawlucha not being the one to satiate Mawile's hunger? Ash pulls out another Pokeball. He still has 2 Pokemon left. Hopefully, they will do the trick. Out from the ball, Ash sends in Quilladin. However, Valerie tuts against this, once again stating that this isn't the one who Mawile wants to bare his fangs against. Ash leaves it up to Quilladin, though, believing he will be able to handle this battle. They start with Pin Missile, only for Mawile to barrel through the attack, lashing out with its head fangs and instantly destroying the move. Suddenly, Mawile's fangs begin to burn with an immense heat. It lashes out at Quilladin, doing immense damage. Quilladin surprisingly manages to hang in though, but the power of Fire Fang was much higher than Ash & Co. would have expected. Mawile continues this relentless assault, but Quilladin keeps doing his best to hang in there. Attack after attack, Quilladin takes in a strange show of valor and team spirit. Ash doesn't know where this fire in Quilladin came from, but he's not going to give up if the spiny nut won't. Eventually, Quilladin begins to turn the tables, getting in a few good licks with Needle Arm. However, even with becoming more aggressive, the most Quilladin can do through defending is against her attacks. However, even with becoming more aggressive, the most Quilladin can do is through defending against the attacks. In the stands, our companions begin to wonder why Quilladin is fighting like this. Serena makes an allusion back to Ramos's words of Quilladin being like a weed. Maybe Quilladin was wanting to take up all the experience of facing Mawile for himself. Clement disagrees, however. Quilladin was willing to fight for the sake of the team against Ramos, so having selfish motivation for facing Mawile in this way would be completely backwards. But was that the same reason why he fought the way he did now? It's then that Bonnie makes the suggestion that maybe it's not for the team as a whole, but only for one team member. Despite all Quilladin's efforts, Valerie's Mawile shows himself to be far more powerful. And with a final combination of Swords Dance and Fire Fang, Quilladin is taken down. This leaves Ash with only one Pokemon left, making the battle a mirror match between the Mawile species. However, the moment Ash's Mawile hits the battlefield, Quilladin comes out of his Pokeball. Ash tries to get him to go back, but Quilladin stubbornly refuses. It's then that Ash realizes why Quilladin was doing this. It's not for himself. Didn't Mawile always pick on him, though? Ash smiles, saying that if Quilladin wants to cheer on Mawile, then he certainly can. The Spiny Nut pumps a fist before letting out a big cheer towards Mawile, who just turns away quickly. Whether embarrassed or flustered, Quilladin and Ash didn't know, but Valerie does. She lets out a little giggle, before admitting she was hoping this would be as interesting as it was. The only question was, would her interest stay for the whole battle? The fight begins, with Ash's Mawile immediately going for Thunder Punch, trying to get in the blow before Valerie has the chance to counterattack. However, at that very moment the attack can land, Valerie's Mawile clamps down with Fire Fang, doing significant damage as well as immobilizing Mawile's arm. Ash's Mawile thrashes about, attempting to fight back against Valerie's, but she's held just in the right place to be easily avoided. When Valerie grows tired of all this, she has Mawile throw Ash's aside. Ash's Mawile is able to recover, but before it can counterattack, she's sucker punched by Valerie's. Immediately, Ash's Mawile is on the back foot, taking multiple blows of Play Rough and Fire Fang. Every time she attempts to counter-strike, she's hit with a Sucker Punch. She tries her own Sucker Punch on occasion, but Valerie is always a step ahead. Valerie mentions to Ash that he shouldn't expect to defeat her with a battle style she has already mastered. She and her Mawile have been partners for quite some time, after all. Ash and Mawile smile in unison. If that were the case, then maybe they should try for something she wouldn't be ready for. With that, Mawile responds to his Keystone, and Mega evolves into Mega Mawile. Mawile goes in for a Play Rough of her own. However, she is once again caught by Valerie's. Valerie rolls up her sleeve, asking why Ash assumed she wouldn't be ready for this. With that, she Mega evolves her own Mawile. The battle rages on, but things are immediately looking dire for Ash. Mawile is barely holding control over her dual sets of jaws, something which Valerie's Mawile seems to have full mastery over. Mawile does everything in her power to keep her dual jaws from going completely wild. This is something Valerie seems to make note of, as she lets her Mawile rage on in an all-out assault. Ash was hoping Mega Evolution would turn the tides, but with them not fully mastering the form, now it was a detriment. It's then that Ash has an idea. A reckless one, but one that might work. He calls out to Mawile, telling her to forget having control. She just needs to tear loose. Mawile's eyes widen for a moment, before they become locked with sheer determination. She lets out a roar, before rushing in. Her dual jaws begin lashing out violently, swiping left and right as if controlled by individual wills. When Valerie's Mawile attempts to attack using Sucker Punch, one of the jaws hammers down on its head, before another immediately puts it into a lock by biting around Valerie's Mawile. The jaw then proceeds, picking up Valerie's Mega Pokemon and violently flinging it about. When it finally releases its grasp, Valerie's Mawile is sent flying a few feet. It recovers, only for it to be swiped at by both jaws once again. With this new haphazard fighting style, Valerie was finally put on the defensive. When Mawile was controlling her actions, she was easy to predict. but now that she had given up said control, the ability to overcome her had drastically lessened. Even when Valerie's Mawile managed to avoid the dual sets of jaws, Ash's Mawile managed to strike a sneaky shot with Sucker Punch or Thunder Punch. In the end, the one to fall is Valerie's Mawile, from a final biting blow. Though, as it depowers, the jaws of Ash's Mawile attempt to keep up the assault, forcing Ash to call back Mega Mawile. Valerie comes up to Ash, awarding him the Fairy Badge and congratulating him on his win. Ash declines the praise, however. He stated that while Mawile was able to get the win for him, it was in a way which he didn't like having her do. If he's going to continue battling alongside Mawile, then he wants to master Mega Evolution. So that way, Mawile could control her huge power in her dual jaws. Valerie smiles, stating that she can help with that, if he's willing to stay for a while. Ash smiles, before bringing out Mawile. With her no longer Mega Evolved, she was in full control, allowing Ash to safely ask her thoughts on the matter. Mawile makes a face at the idea at first, but eventually does give her consent to the training, meaning that starting the next day, Ash and Mawile would begin their quest to hone the Mega Evolution's power, and the dual set of jaws which comes with it. And that's where we'll be leaving things for right now. I hope you enjoyed this very battle-focused episode. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one, which I hope to have out very soon. Bye!